Richard Skipper celebrates. Every show is a celebration. Each show, Richard delivers the artists you love, showcasing what makes them unique. Never gossipy. The antidote to a sometimes hectic world. Now, here's your host, Richard Skipper.
Happy Tuesday, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of Richard Skipper Celebrates. For those of you who are returning, thanks for coming back. And for those of you who are here for the first time, my show is about celebrating. It's about celebrating artists and their body of worth. What makes a great artist? How do they get from point A to point B and beyond? It's always easy for me to sit down and celebrate other artists because I have such a respect for the art form, what people bring to the table. It's even better when the person that I happen to be celebrating happens to be an old friend. And Stephen Wishnoff and I, we've known each other since, are you ready? Since the early 80s. Yeah. And of course, he goes on to Hollywood and all kinds of phenomenal, incredible things happen, which we're going to talk about today. But Stephen, before we begin, I want to put things in perspective with where we are right now. First of all, thank you for being here. And we are still, but slowly coming out of the pandemic, hopefully coming out of it. Just announced today, The Lion King and Wicked and Phantom of the Opera are all reopening on September 14th on Broadway. Buy your tickets, everyone. It's very, very important that you do so. But I want to ask you, Stephen, how are you doing really in the midst of this crazy world we now find ourselves in?
I don't know. What have I done? I'm okay. How are you?
Good. Well, you're doing okay. I mean, are you keeping your creativity going? Are you doing a lot of writing or how? Well, tell us a little bit about it.
About the first month in, I guess it would have been last April, I suddenly realized, I really do have a lot of time. And this is all that time that you always wish you had when you have ideas for things you want to write or be involved in. And so I turned my attention to and churned out a couple of television pilots and a feature film, which took the better part of the year to do. And luckily for me, my writers group maintained itself online as a weekly presence. Mm-hmm. And so I always had that connection going on. So we were never, I don't think we ever took even a week off during the pandemic. We went immediately pivoted from meeting in person weekly to Zoom calls, which are less than ideal, but especially when you've got one person and you're always going, "You're muted."
As our friend Sue Matsuki always says, for anyone over 40, be careful when you push a button because God only knows where it's going to take you. And some people have lost their careers by pushing a button and not realizing what was going on around them.
I remember a simpler time when someone pushing your buttons meant something else entirely.
Exactly. Well, I'm sitting here in my home in Rockland County, New York. I didn't know whether or not you knew that I lived here, but this is where you come from.
Yes. Where in Rockland are you?
I live in Spark Hill, which I refer to respectfully and lovingly, of course, as the armpit of Piermont.
I've heard that reference before. And
have you really?
Yeah, didn't want to cast aspersions. It might have been someone that told me ages ago that you were there, perhaps.
Oh, perhaps that's it.
Probably. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm sort of from the other side of the county, closer to Pomona. Mm-hmm. It's called Wesley Hills now. It was originally a part of Muncie, and then Muncie shifted entirely, and Wesley Hills became its own thing, its own area. And yeah, so that's where I was from. Actually, I didn't know Christina Bianco was from Rockland County.
Right. Now, are you, do you still have family here?
Not in Rockland. Well, yeah, actually, yes, I do. I lovingly refer to her as a sister. She's in Suffern.
Okay. And, I mean, is she a biological sister or a
No,
sister? Okay. Do you have brothers and sisters?
I have one younger brother.
Okay. And I want to ask you, I mean, both you and I, and we're really going to delve into this, especially with your career, you and I are both products of 1960s and 70s television.
Oh, yes.
I want to know a little bit about the 5-year-old Stephen Wishnoff. The 5-year-old self is that time before you start school, before peer pressure gets added on, teachers start molding you into what they think you should or should not be. What were you like as a kid growing up in Rockland County?
A pain in the butt, I'm sure. What was I like? Oh my gosh. I was always doing something, making something, creating something. I had lots of craft things and arts and craft things. 5 years old, I want to think. Well, at 5 years old, that's nursery school, right? Or is that kindergarten?
Just before, on the precipice of that.
Because I think it was nursery school. I was in nursery school with David Klugman, who actually still lives in Nyack. Jack and Brett's son. And then that was called Work and Play Nursery School. Good Lord, what a memory. It's a little scary sometimes to relatives, but I used to love to make things. And at one ill-advised moment, I think I got a chemistry set because that's when, back before there were parental warnings about everything, and lawn darts were going to end your future, and clackers were, going to put out your eye, and don't drink from the garden hose, and don't leave the house without a helmet and elbow pads and knee pads. No, I was a walking case of don't do this anymore. But I loved watching reruns of what I now know were classic sitcoms. I loved movie musicals whenever I could see them. Growing up, I remember going to see Oliver and thinking, wow, this is incredible. I remember the first time I saw West Side Story on television, because obviously I wasn't even born when it came out, but
well, I was. No, I wear it proudly. West Side Story. George Akiris, who I just interviewed a few weeks ago, won the Academy Award the year I was born. Shortest Academy Award winning speech ever. Him and Rita Moreno. People take a lesson from those two.
Two people I have had the pleasure of either just knowing or working with.
Well, George, I've spent a lot of time with him, so that was, great to sit down and talk with him like this. But growing in your household, were you exposed to the arts on a major level? I know you had a TV, and in those days, the TV was a piece of furniture.
Yeah, I remember the first one, the early one, that actually had a button on it that you could hold, and it would change the channels, like, which was kind of cool. I mean, you could turn them normally, but it had this button on it that I thought was the coolest thing. But we also had a stereo. What did they call it? It was a console. And in it, I remember as a kid discovering that there were albums. One of them was the set of 78s for South Pacific. So I figured out how to do that and listen to that, which was pretty cool. It was from the movie South Pacific, not the Mary Martin. And then we also had Peter and the Wolf, which I loved. And I could just listen to that orchestra. I loved it. I was enthralled with it.
I had the Peter the Wolf narrated by Carol Channing.
Well, of course you did.
My parents, I wonder if they regret buying that album for me.
Color me shocked.
I know.
But so I was exposed to that stuff. I actually think we had the album of West Side Story as well from the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even know that it was a Broadway show until I was in school. Because I didn't know from Broadway shows until I was about, I want to say 11, 12.
What was the first Broadway show that you saw?
Goodness, I don't remember, honestly. Because, I could look up the years to be sure. I know I saw Pippin. I know I saw The Wiz. The Wiz, I was in junior high. Pippin had to have been first.
Mm-hmm.
And then later, when I was directed and choreographed by Chet Walker, I told him that I still had the playbill and he said, well, I don't have one with my name in it. And because Chet was in the company of Pippin on Broadway, and I saw him when I was a kid. And then as an adult, he directed me when Anne Rankin was working on the reboot of Chicago. And we did Chicago just outside of Boston. And he directed and choreographed it and used a lot of Mr. Fosse's work, or Mr. Fosse's inspired work, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody, I don't think anybody other than Anne ever said she was actually duplicating it or as close to it as she could get it.
Now, when you were going to school here in Rockland County, was there a good arts program in the school? Did you have the opportunity to audition and do plays either in junior high or high school?
Oh, absolutely. I was in absolutely everything. Anything there was, I auditioned for and did it, and some community stuff as well, and then eventually graduated to, at different points, Antrim and Elmwood Playhouses.
Which are still there, by the way.
Yes, and in fact, somebody I did a summer stock job with was part of a benefit, I believe, for Antrim, and an online thing, and I was so happy to log on during the pandemic and see him these gazillion years later.
That's
I think
great.
We did Shenandoah together. I think. Yes, it was Shenandoah.
What was it that first pulled you into wanting to do theater?
Well, who doesn't want to play make-believe for real?
Mm-hmm.
That's what it is. That's the job. But
was there something that inspired you? Was it either television or seeing a live show or listening to these cast albums that made you say, I want to do that?
Well, I loved music. I loved to sing. And I begged for a piano. Finally got one when I was about 15. But one of the first weeks I was on set with Rita Moreno, we were everybody was getting to know each other, and she's very focused when we're working, but when we're not working, it's another thing. And I actually said something to the effect of, seeing West Side Story, seeing her in West Side Story, was part of the reason I even started wanting to do musical theater. And she said, what, you wanted to be a Puerto Rican woman with a dead boyfriend?
Sounds like her. That's something she would say.
Which I think is how we've remained friendly over these years. I said, no, that wasn't it. And frankly, leaping onto George's shoulder looked excruciatingly painful. And that was the first time I heard the story of how difficult that lift was to do.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But and I know you know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
The butt sliding off the shoulder lift, and how many takes do they have to do it? With the entire ensemble having to repeat it.
Was Jerome Robbins was still working on the film when that happened, didn't it?
Yeah,
So that must have been like 50 or 60 times.
something like that. That is kind of
He had
what
no concept. Go and read George Akiris's book, which is very respectful of Jerome Robbins, but he had no clue as to time on a film set.
Exactly. That's how I've heard the stories, and I actually can't wait to read George's book.
It's a great book. Great book.
He's such a nice man and speaks so openly and freely about that time. And so, I enjoyed talking with him. We were at an event together for the Hollywood Museum, and came a point where we were separated from the herd, as it were. And we had a nice chat about it. We've actually seen each other a couple of times. I'm friends with his publicist, as with so many others.
Harlan Bull, we'll give him a shout out.
Yeah, I actually tagged him that we were doing this today.
Oh yeah, Harlan's a very good friend, and if you're watching Harlan, I think the world of you. I love what he does, and he celebrates that older Hollywood. You celebrate that older Hollywood. I do as well, as you know. And one of the things that I love about you, with all the work that you've done, and I'm going to jump ahead of my story. I want to go back. When you started doing theater in school, and you knew that this is something that you wanted to do, when did you first realize that this is something that I could make into a lifelong habit, a lifelong career?
I think I always knew that. There's just, they say you always, there are some people who say I had an aha moment. I don't think I ever had an aha moment. I think I had yeah, I was right. Yeah, this is what I wanted to do, no matter how, and believe me, very well-intended parents who, were very concerned, and with very good reason. No, don't do this. You're good at so many other things. You're great with languages. Do this. You're great with artwork. Do this. You might be able to do this. And for whatever reason, nothing could turn me from it.
But when you told them this is something you wanted to do, or if you did, were they supportive when you made that decision?
They were, supportive in the sense that they came to see everything I did that they could come to see. I think there was a lot of dismay. And frankly, if you think about the challenges of anything in the entertainment business, with good reason, but doing regional theaters, they flew across the country to see me.
God bless them. God bless them both. And what was the transition out of high school? Did you go to college? Did you go right into the business? What happened? What happened right after high school?
So, well, actually, it's a very funny story, because this is true. I was auditioning for colleges. There was an enormous blizzard, and I was scheduled to do my audition at SUNY Fredonia, which is where I ended up going initially. SUNY Fredonia is sort of like from New York City, draw a straight line to Buffalo, make a left, and if you fall in Lake Erie, you missed by that much, just that much. And it has had a wonderful, fairly new BFA in musical theater program. And that was for me. And one of my friends growing up, Erica Citron, was in Fredonia going there, and she was a year ahead of me in high school. And I asked her what she thought of it. And she thought the world of it. And I thought she was one of the most talented people I had ever met in my life. She too, by the way, is still doing theater. And so, in order to get to Fredonia for this audition, I had to take a bus, which is a 12-hour bus ride to get there. And there was a blizzard. And we got as far as Rochester before everything behind us was snowed in and closed on the thruway, and everything in front of us was closed in. So there I was in what had to be a stereotypical dive of a bus station in the armpit of Rochester, New York. Mind you, I think this was 1976 or, yeah, would have been 76 or 77 in the winter. And there I was basically for 2.5 days, and, you know, calling home on a payphone.
I remember those days.
You know, and, you know, my father being very concerned. And I said, listen, whichever direction the road's open, that's the direction I'm going. Now, North and Northwestern New York knows very well how to deal with snow and blizzard conditions, and that's what opened first. So I went all the way up to Fredonia after being 2.5 days in a bus station. And I got there, and I was going to sleep on the floor in Erica's dorm, and managed to reach the people who were running the auditions and said, listen, I was snowed in a bus station. I'm sorry I missed the audition by 2 days, but can I do it now? And they were like, okay. And they found somebody to sight read my music, and they set it all up. Now, youth, because, you know, at this point, if I had slept on the floor of a bus station for 2.5 days and somebody said, and now you're going to sing the second meditation from Shenandoah, I would be like, no, now you're out of your mind. But 2.5 days later, I opened my mouth and had their hair blowing in the wind, because I had back then, well, probably still do actually, one of those Merman-esque sized voices, because of course you and I both know it's pre-microphones.
That's right.
And you had to hit the back wall.
That's right.
And that's how I learned to sing. You sing to the back wall. Now you go into an audition room, it's this big, and as much as you want to blow it out, you can't really, because you'll deafen them, and then they can't hear themselves tell you how wonderful you are. But I finished the audition and I got in, and I did go to Fredonia for the musical theater program, where it was so early in the creation of that program that they treated BFA musical theater people like, okay, so you're an acting major, you're a voice major, you're a dance minor. And that's a lot of credits to have to carry. And it's a struggle. And the class before me, I think, was the second or the first. I think we were the third. The one before me was the second, and they started with something like 40 people in it, and 6 graduated. I got to the end of my second year and had done this massive, in between stuff, had done this massive production of No No Nanette at, and we were at Shays Buffalo, which was an old vaudeville theater that was then housing musical theater. Now I understand it's been completely renovated, and I guess once all the crazy is done, they'll go back to, you know, booking in the tours and that sort of thing, like we did. And I absolutely loved that. I learned, I had some tap prior, not a lot, but got through a production of Funny Girl and for Henry Street, which is a tap number, or at least it was turned into one. And I was not in the Rat-tat-tat-tat number, which is a tap number.
Yes.
But for Nanette, I really had to tap. And I would go to all the rehearsals, even if I was not scheduled for that rehearsal, just so that I could shadow in the back and learn what everybody else was doing. Little did this brain of mine pick up on, that's what understudies and swings have to do. And as it happened, somebody had to leave the show. Somebody from the ensemble was brought up into that role. And the director gathered us together one day and said, and to replace the lead tap spot will be Stephen Wishnoff. And I was like, what?
Yes.
He was like, but he's been at every rehearsal. He knows every step. And I didn't know that he was aware of it.
You didn't even see that coming.
Not at all. And
Wow.
in fact,
Wow.
my roommate at the time, Larry, and I looked, because he was in the show. The two of us looked at each other like, holy crap, I better get to work. And that was how I stepped in. And then in between two, I think it was during the summer season, the Young Americans came through with a tour of West Side Story. And I watched the tour, and then a notice went up in the student commons that said they were casting for their next season. And a whole bunch of us just, get out your tap shoes, Francis. Julian Marsh is doing a show.
Yeah.
And ran and auditioned for them and was one of two people from my school that got in. So I went that summer out to the Young Americans. And when all was said and done, after 2 years of college, it was time to just go do it. So I never finished the BFA degree, though I am still friends with everybody I was in that program with. Sort of like prisoners of war coming out and still staying close.
Well, the interesting thing about that time frame, because I remember it so well as well, theaters took chances. I mean, the fact that they took a chance on you were not a tap dancer in the general sense of this was something that you pursued, but you were prepared when they said, this is what we need.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I was prepared to work my butt off. Mm-hmm. And I did. And it was wonderful. Our choreographer on that was Jackie Horner, who was a former Rockette. Mm-hmm. And was in Dirty Dancing, and was just delightful. And good Lord, I learned a castle walk and a specialties foxtrot and this tap number that was precision tap, because of course she was a Rockette, so it was precision work.
Was it a struggle for you to decide whether or not you wanted to pursue your BFA or just jump into the ring and start pursuing it?
No. Honestly.
And what was your next step? I know you and I originally met when you were playing in the piano bars. How did that transition happen with you? And were you also in the pursuit, as a lot of us were at that time, I don't know what it's like now for anyone, of getting your equity card? Was this something that was important to you?
Oh, yeah. Well, the equity card thing was not as much of a struggle as I thought it would be. I mean, I had heard, when you're a kid, you hear all these terrible stories about you have to do X number of weeks as an equity intern or whatever they called it, apprentice program.
EMC program.
EMC, yes.
Equity Membership Candidacy Program, yeah.
And, you had to do this, that, and the other. And I had auditioned for a TYA, a Theater for Young Audiences contract. What was it called? Was it TheaterWorks? Yeah, I think it was called TheaterWorks USA.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And memories.
Yes.
I can't believe I'm remembering this crap. And we did it was a production called The Play's the Thing. And it was the first of several musicals I've done in my lifetime that were the story of William Shakespeare writing Romeo and Juliet.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting fodder, because it's come up again. I think it was twice more in my life. Much like West Side Story keeps showing up in my life. I've never been in West Side Story. I'm not right for any role in West Side Story, except possibly Krupke, maybe Shrank at this point. But
and when you get older, Doc.
Yes, or depending on what productions do after this new movie comes out, Valentina. You know, I love that they have Doc's widow.
I agree. Absolutely.
I just think that's brilliant, and that Rita did it, and is a producer on the film. You know, that's just genius. Oh, and as an aside, anybody who gets the chance to see A Girl Who Just Decided to Go For It, the documentary about Rita's life, has to see it. It is astounding.
Hasn't it come out yet? I haven't seen it.
I saw it as part of a film festival.
Okay.
When they ran it at Miami Film Festival, I happened to be on their list of people to see stuff, and I immediately sent Rita a message and just said, this is fantastic. And interestingly, I am not visible, but I was actually there for 3 different things that they showed in the documentary. So there was actually a sequence in Oz where I was there. There was something from a show she did here in Los Angeles at Catalina Jazz Club. It was a one-woman show, and some of the monologue was there that I was there for. I believe I even hear myself laughing. So it was kind of nice. But where were we?
No, the pursuit that you were doing after. Into the piano bar scene.
How did
your equity card? Your equity card.
Well, my equity card was through TheaterWorks, and then it was just audition for absolutely everything you possibly can.
Well, let me ask you this. I mean, because, and again, at that time, and again, it's been so many years, I don't even know what the scene is like now, especially with the last year being in place. But when you, for some people, it's a huge blessing to get that card because all the doors open up. And then for others, there's that fluke. You get your card and every door seems to shut for you. You have to rise to the occasion. Did those doors open or close for you at that time?
We have a visitor. She's being rather insistent. This is Maggie the cat.
Hi, Maggie. Oh, Maggie the cat.
Yes. And she's purring very loudly.
Oh, good. We love that.
Because I was talking to you and not to her. She got upset. I found that it worked in my favor. I mean, I did do a lot of non-union theater, a lot of it, but it worked in my favor. It did. And in a couple of instances where it wasn't a union house, they would take on a guest artist contract, which for people who don't know, some theaters will want to hire an equity actor for a specific role or a specific season, and they make an agreement with the union that they will hire this actor and they'll put up the bond and fulfill all the requirements. And of course, it's in the union's best interest to do that because they would like another theater to go union. And hello. And so I was fortunate that happened a number of times. And I even had it happen, as a matter of fact, I mentioned Chet Walker directing Chicago. It even happened when I auditioned for Chicago. I auditioned for Amos. I've done Amos 4 times now. And that particular production, he had, I believe it was 3 union contracts. And he wanted, so Billy, Roxy, and Velma were union contracts. I walked in, did what I do, and they secured an additional contract for me. They weren't planning on casting a union Amos, but I guess maybe Chet thought I was enough like Ernie Sabella that well, he saw something, whatever it was, and I'm forever grateful because I made wonderful friends in that production. who I'm still friends with to this day. And so, yeah, having my equity card turned out to be a good thing.
So you mentioned earlier getting your piano at 15, and that paid off because you were playing a lot of the piano bars in New York. When you started playing in the piano bars, was this for lack of a better word, a lull in your pursuit of acting jobs, or was it in addition to everything else that you were doing? And how did the first job come about?
It was in addition to everything. I referred to it as my longtime survival job, as a lot of us do, because a lot of the people who played were music directors. I never played that well. A lot of the people who played were also actors, like myself, like Michael Mackesy, for example.
Yes.
Who's also a music director. Damn him for being so good. And,
but we love Michael.
Yeah, Mac's great. And I worked pretty steadily. Now, how did it start? It started, I was in New York in a sublet apartment, looking both for an apartment, looking for, to audition more, all of that. It was summer, and I found the original duplex on Grove Street and became an instant fan of Karen Miller and Rochelle Selden.
Oh my God.
And would be there singing my lungs out, joining in when they were doing Sweeney Todd on the 20th Century, because they would bring people up to the mic in a group to do bits.
Oh my God, you're taking me back. I'm going to start tearing up. I remember these moments so vividly. Yes, it's great.
Yeah, I mean, anybody who was ever there at the time, the old joke was Sweeney Todd people. And those of us who did it would get up in front of that tiny little wall with that one microphone in front of us, and each of us would do the different vocal lines, swing your razor high, and that, sorry, didn't mean to blow out your audio.
Yeah. A cast of thousands, sometimes. It was great.
At times, yeah, and 20th Century as well.
I always used to joke, and I say this with the utmost respect to Karen, who I worship at your feet, what that woman was able to create, both there and later on at 88's. Mm-hmm. You could almost tell the time by what musical was being played.
If Rochelle was next to the piano and they were doing Peter Pan, you knew it was about 9:30.
Right. Exactly.
Hand to God. And it worked. It worked. She knew the ebb and flow of a room. She could gauge what would work, and you knew that if Rochelle was doing Goatherd, any minute Ruby Rims was going to come up and do his version of Favorite Things.
Absolutely.
Well,
there are many from that era. So many of us hit that town at the same time. And
for me, it was 91.
Yes, that's exactly right. Well, it was a little earlier for me, but seeing everyone at this time, and then for some, it catapulted them to other opportunities. Mm-hmm. Some, unfortunately, got stuck in that routine, because when you work all night long and you're selling drinks and singing and everything, and there was also a time where there was smoke-filled rooms. Many people didn't survive that. Many people did, but some didn't. And when I say survive that, I mean moving beyond that. You, of course,
some didn't want to.
Some didn't want to, but you did survive it. Mm-hmm. Did it catapult you to the next phase of your life?
Absolutely.
What way did it do that?
Well, a lot of ways. A lot had to do with the people who were exposed to me and what I did, and me being exposed to other people and what they did. Mm-hmm. kind of helped to mold a lot of my instincts improvisationally. As you know, it's 6-7 hours of improv nonstop a night, in addition to, yes, you play the music and you do the thing and you accompany and all of that. But there's a lot of, you have to entertain, you have to engage. So there's a lot of improv involved. And I was able to, for example, do Whoop-de-Doo at Actors Playhouse while I was still working in the piano bars.
Which I saw you in.
Oh, did you really?
Absolutely. Howard Crabtree designed one of my first costumes, by the way.
I did not know that.
Yeah, and that was in my Judy Garland days. He designed a replica of her Palladium concert. I wanted to be in that show so bad I could taste it. I saw the show 4 times and just absolutely loved that show.
Well, you certainly would have killed in the Idol number. That's for sure. Yeah, I went in and I took over for Peter Morris, who was one of the writers, as Vivian McVanish. Vivian McVanish, the Invisible Lady, yes.
Yes.
I will know. Oh, God. Yes.
Well, just brilliant. It was just so brilliant.
See, now here's part of that connection. Because of the piano bars, I had become friends with Matthew Ward. Matthew Ward was music directing the show. He knew that I had a falsetto. We didn't know if I had a countertenor, but we knew I had a falsetto. And Vivian's song is a mezzo-soprano aria. And so he said, well, let's try. And, we sat down at a piano in a rehearsal space. And I was like, I don't know if everybody's got a little secret. They're anxious. I guess I can. And so then that was going 8 shows a week. And I still had time to keep my shifts, or at least one shift. So I was able to do both at the same time. Or when the Soloways brought Real Life Brady Bunch into town from Chicago, they needed somebody who could step in, be improvisational, and still play all of the music from the Brady Bunch for the Brady Bunch. And they used to come into the piano bars to hang out and do improv. And next thing I know, there I am at the Village Gate doing Real Life Brady Bunch 8 shows a week.
Didn't you love performing there? I loved the Village Gate.
I absolutely did. Downstairs at the Village Gate was one of the best off-Broadway theaters, I think, that ever existed. I actually walked by the corner the last time I was home and went, yeah, no. I was like, another theater space gone.
And the Actors Playhouse is gone as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess that's what I do. I go in, do shows, and we close the theaters.
Well, this will surprise. I mean, I just heard just a few weeks ago that the cigar store that's there on the corner is about to close.
No.
And that I just wish that they could leave that facade up. Because it's such a part of that area.
They have to declare it a landmark. Because that Village Cigar has to be a landmark. I mean, it's at least to keep the facade, yeah. Because if they tear that, oh God, no, that's sad.
It saddens me
so much.
But it saddens me that it's going to go.
I mean, not once did I ever shop there, but seeing it every week and knowing it was there was, that was an anchor. But yeah, so the networking aspect of being in the piano bars was great for me. More than one casting director and more than one agent saw me in the piano bars. And
surprised at the success of the Real Life Brady Bunch?
Was I surprised at it? No, it was brilliant. It was
absolutely brilliant. It was a great show.
Yeah, the Soloways knew what they had, and so smart, just so smart in the way it was done. And because it was real life game show, real life Brady Bunch, it was basically a 2-for-1 that really built up and had the climax as an episode of the Brady Bunch.
Mm-hmm.
With adult actors playing child actors playing children. So, there's that weird layer thing that you really got to play a lot with.
And years later, you would go on to work with Robbie Rist.
Actually, yeah. Well, and I've worked with Susan
Yes.
Olsen. And I worked with Maureen briefly. I've worked with Chris a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was actually the talent supervisor when he was doing the Wonderful Pistachio commercials. He was married to Adrian back then.
Mm-hmm.
And we had known each other because I had worked for Nick at Night. And so I knew most of the Bradys, sort of.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, Mike Lookenland and Susan Olsen came to the real life Brady Bunch at the Village Gate the night of the Rodney King riots.
Wow. Wow.
And we were locked into the theater for our own protection because apparently there was a bit of a ruckus on the streets of the village.
Mm-hmm.
I say a bit of a ruckus because I did not see. We could hear it, but I certainly didn't see what it was because we were downstairs. And when we came out and it was all clear, the streets were desolate. And I will never forget Mike and Susan actually slow dancing in the middle of the street because there were no cars, there were no people.
Wow. Well, I want to ask you before we run out of time, and we're going to run out of time. You're welcome to come back anytime. But I want to ask you, I mean, you obviously live in California now. Do you consider yourself now a Californian, or will you always be a New Yorker?
Yes. That's the short answer.
Yeah.
New York made me. New York gave me my sense of humor. New York gave me music. Theater gave me music.
Mm-hmm.
And everything that I have done, and even a lot of the people I know here are because of things I did back east. Yes, I'm still friends with, as many are, with a lot of people I've worked with over the years.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them have landed out here. So that's nice.
That's great.
A lot of us are in touch over social media. And that's really nice because when anybody just wants to get in touch, they're in touch. And it's terrific.
What do you consider internally the break for you? Some people will look at your resume, which is very impressive, and they will say, wow, these are great moments in his life. But for you personally, what was that moment that you say, this is what I wanted, this is what I dreamed would happen? Was there any particular moment for you that happened that way?
I don't think I could pin it on one. I've had a few, I'll call them Peggy Sawyer moments. I'll do it. I've had a few of those. See how I bring everything back to musical theater?
Of course. Steve, you are musical theater.
C'est moi.
Yeah.
Again. I've had a few of them. There have been quite a few of them. I have described to some people how things like West Side Story keeps coming back into my life, whether it's the movie, the stage play, Rita, George, that kind of a thing. Some had to do with high school, because I met the biggest pain in the ass, the most obnoxious human being who was by far one of the best music teachers I've ever had there, who really kicked my butt and actually said to me at one point, you can't dance, you sing flat, and you can't act. You should consider another path. And I think it was 7 years later, he hired me to be in a production of Company as a benefit for his college. So, I had the last laugh there. And he spent the rest of the time we knew each other. He's passed now, but spent the rest of the time we knew each other apologizing to me. But so, there was that moment. There was the first time when I was, how old was I? 11, 10? No, I was very young. And I played an owl in an adaptation of Beatrix Potter's Squirrel Nutkin. And I will never forget the first time we did the show, and I was an owl in my little tree thing, and I had my wings. And I don't remember how it happened or what I was supposed to say. I still don't remember what I was supposed to say. I will at some point. And the curtain opened, and I said nothing. And somebody whispered to me what it was, and from that moment, there was no looking back. There was no looking back from that moment, and I was a kid. So that would be the answer. Thank you for letting me get there like a therapist. You were spot on. You got it out of me. Thank you.
And how did the move to California actually take place? What was the job that got you to California? And once you got out there, what was the deciding factor that said, this is where I want to remain?
Not very complicated, really. I had been with Nick at Night and TV Land at that point as the senior producer for online interactive short form content. And that job came to an end. I was living up in Riverdale at the time. Cute little co-op. Actually not so little, but I liked it a lot. And I went, I'm not sure what I want to do next or how I want to do it. Oz had finished, and that was one of the most amazing experiences of my life. And I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And Michael Levitt, who had created and produced the TV Land Awards, and I had worked with very closely, was on the phone with me one night, and he said, you love television so much. Why don't you move out to Los Angeles? And this is where television really is. And at the time, that was true. Mm-hmm. There wasn't as much in New York. There were a couple of soaps and Law and Order, and that was kind of about it at that point. And all the Law and Orders, I should say. And so I said, well, I could do that, but that sounds like an expensive move. Let me think about it. And I realized that if I sold the co-op, that would not only finance the move, but it would give me a wonderful cushion so that I could get started. And as it happened, I moved out here. Michael was producing the World Music Awards at what was then the Dolby Theater. Or the Kodak. It was the Kodak then. It's the Dolby now, where they do the Oscars, or used to do the Oscars, or did the Oscars until they went to the train station.
Yes. Hopefully we'll get back there.
Hopefully. And he called me one day and said, listen, it didn't work out with somebody on the show. I need somebody I can trust as a talent supervisor. And I said, oh, sure. I'd love to. And that became one of the first jobs I did out here, and worked with a whole lot of music artists who I did not know directly, but knew through people. And then discovered, for example, Mariah Carey's makeup artist, Christopher Buckle, who is brilliant. He and I had been friends together in New York before he ever went in that direction. And so there was that connection and ability to communicate with her team. And, you know, I was somebody who was not afraid of Patti LaBelle. And so that was easy to deal with she and her team, and so on and so on and so on. And so I did a good deal of work in what's called the talent departments here. It has to do with shows that book celebrity talent to be a part of, whether it's a reality competition show or what, you know, that kind of a thing. And I did a whole bunch of shows at that point. One was called What Can They Sing? One was Celebrity Duets. One was World Music Awards, which was massive, and I think took them 7.5 hours to film, a 2-hour show. Well, because they had to keep changing out bands and sets, and Bon Jovi was coming in, but the Maserati from Mariah had to go off, and it was a very kind of complicated situation, handled by people much better than I. Actually, a fantastic team. So I did a lot of work initially in those arenas because I didn't want to act anymore. After Oz, I kind of felt like, okay, you know, I've done my theater, I've done some television, I've, you know, did little bits in a couple of movies, and okay, I don't need to do this anymore. I don't burn for it anymore like I used to.
Mm-hmm.
That has shifted a little bit, and so I've come back to it a bit.
Good for you. That's great.
And I've, you know, done a few things out here since then. I think, well, the most recent was just pre-pandemic, was Hollywood for Netflix, Ryan Murphy's show.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Episode 3, Don't Blink, You'll Miss Me.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like I said, when the dark times came, I started doing a lot of writing. I've always been writing, don't get me wrong, and all of the song parodies that I always did, I kept doing. And I actually wrote, my friend Sam Pancake was doing a show as a character called Fritzy. I've forgotten Fritzy's last name at this moment. Zimmer, Fritzy Zimmer, and I was Giacomo Schwartz in his
great name,
his one-man show. I was Giacomo Schwartz in the one-man show called Fritzy Zimmer, What's Left of Me. And I accompanied him in the show, played a character. I was a character in the show, playing the show, and then wrote him a title number finale song, which is an homage to Kander and Ebb in my own way. So, I mean, I've been writing a lot, and I was like, no, let's focus down on film and television, and have actually just found out I got a little bit of traction on a horror feature I wrote that my agent called and said, somebody wants to read this, send me the most recent version. So off that went, you know, but like auditions, you just don't think about it.
No. Well, I can't believe this, but we are at the end of our show. We've barely scratched the surface.
Barely.
But yes, but no, seriously, there's so much there. But as I say in my introduction, my show is about celebrating your body of worth, what brought you to where you are now, and we are all the better for it. I mean, you have given so many gifts to all of us, and you will continue to give those gifts because of your writing, the work that you've done that's on film, the people that you've worked with. I love the fact that throughout this interview, one phrase keeps popping up, and that's, they're still my friends. That says a lot about you. No, seriously. It says a lot about you, and it says a lot about the people that you have associated with over the years. Don't go anywhere, but I want to thank everybody for being here today. I hope you enjoyed the show as much as I did. If you did, and if you don't mind, and if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to Richard Skipper Celebrates on YouTube. Hit the like button if you like today's show. Go a step further and leave a comment, and even go a step further and share this with other people. Stephen and I both are looking for an audience always. So get the word out. Let people know what you thought. Let me know what you think of today's show. I also end every show by telling everyone to go out and do something nice for somebody else without expecting anything in return. Go to your Facebook friends list, and the second name that pops up, reach out with a phone call. Not an email message, not a text message, not a private message, a real honest-to-God phone call. And let that person know what they mean to you. As a dear friend says, we're all in this together, but we're not in the same boat. But if you're going to be in that boat, make sure that you bring a skipper along. It's important. Think about that. Anyway, Stephen, I'm going to give you the final word. I'm actually going to leave the screen. You've got the platform to yourself. Anything that we talked about today that you want to build upon, anything that we didn't talk about that you wish we had, or just any message that you want to put out to everyone who's watching right now. Again, I thank you for being here today. And I love you. You're the best.
Wow. This has been an amazing hour. I haven't seen Richard in, I guess, 2 years now, possibly 3. I ran into him at the Laurie Beachman when Sam and I were coming in to do a version of his show. But I will second what he said. Do something nice for somebody. Expect nothing in return. I think it's important that we all help each other and be there for each other, because sometimes the people who need us most ask for it the least. And I think that's a good place to leave it. I really do. Richard, I will stay here if you want to talk to me afterward. And to everybody at home, thanks for watching. And I do hope he asks me back, because good Lord, there's so much more to talk about. So much more.